Ever get that strange gut feeling like someone's watching you, but no one's around? Then suddenly your neighbor appears. Again. He's not doing anything alarming, just watering the grass. For the third time, today, in the exact same spot. Coincidence or calculated? Sometimes the biggest red flags don't wave, they whisper, and before you realize it, your sanctuary feels more like a stage, with you as the main act. You know that odd sensation, the one that creeps up your spine the moment you step outside, like eyes are already on you? And just like clockwork, your neighbor materializes, not once, not twice, but for the third time today, he's watering that same tiny patch of grass. Again. You try to brush it off. Maybe you're just being paranoid, right? But what if you're not? What if those perfectly trimmed hedges hide more than landscaping pride? What if the friendly wave across the fence isn't so friendly after all? In some neighborhoods, the line between being neighborly and being intrusive isn't just blurred, it's been erased completely. Suddenly, your peaceful little corner of the world starts feeling like a surveillance zone, and you, tiptoeing around your own home, begin to feel more like a suspect than a resident. If you've ever found yourself lowering your voice in your own kitchen just in case someone might be listening through the walls, guess what? You're not alone. And more importantly, you might be onto something. Your instincts, as uncomfortable as they are, might just be trying to protect you. In today's video, we're uncovering 5 clear, unsettling signs that your neighbor isn't just nosy, they're watching you. And no, this isn't about quirky habits or harmless curiosity. These are real red flags that, if ignored, could seriously disrupt your peace of mind and your sense of safety. So stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll be able to recognize the signs before the danger moves any closer. And if you believe your privacy isn't just important, but sacred, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We're just getting started. Sign 1. They always seem to show up the moment you leave your house. Ever step outside just for a breath of fresh air, a quick errand, maybe to grab your mail? And there they are. Again, that same neighbor, always popping up, always around. Not just once or twice, constantly. If this has happened to you, it's not just a fluke. Sometimes your body knows something is off long before your mind catches up. It's a survival instinct, and it's speaking to you. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about those harmless little exchanges, like when you both happen to reach your mailboxes at the same time on a Saturday morning. What I'm describing is a repeated pattern, an eerie rhythm where your movements somehow summon theirs, where coincidence starts to feel more like coordination. Let me paint you a picture. There was a man I knew, David, a retired firefighter, a simple man with a quiet routine. Every evening after dinner, he'd take a walk around his block. Nothing unusual, just a peaceful ritual that helped him unwind. At first, he thought it was just bad timing when his neighbor, 3 houses down, would show up around the same time. Maybe he was checking on his car. Maybe he was reorganizing the garage. Nothing worth worrying about. But then, it kept happening. It didn't matter whether David left at 6 p.m. or 9 p.m. Even during light rain, his neighbor would somehow be outside, pretending to clean an already spotless driveway, leaning on his car, aimlessly scrolling his phone. Always there, always present. Over time, that faint sense of unease David felt turned into something much heavier. It wasn't just observation anymore. It felt like anticipation, as though his next move was being predicted before he even made it. There's a name for this kind of behavior: hypervigilant observation. It's when someone studies your routine so closely, they start to track and mirror your behavior like a shadow. And that's where it becomes truly dangerous, because patterns don't happen by accident. Patterns like that don't appear out of thin air. They're built, brick by brick, through attention, intention, and often an unhealthy obsession. A neighbor who tracks your habits with that level of precision isn't simply being curious or friendly. They're building a narrative in their mind, one where your life somehow overlaps with their sense of control. Over time, they may begin to believe that your routines belong to them, that your presence is something to monitor, that your space is somehow theirs to watch. Even the Stoics, centuries ago, without security systems or digital footprints, understood this kind of hidden threat. They knew that not all danger arrives with noise. Some of it lurks quietly behind hedges or stares out from behind blinds. Marcus Aurelius once wrote that, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." And that truth rings louder than ever today. Because when your peace is disturbed, it's not always the external situation causing it. It's your internal alarm, the quiet voice that says, something's off. And that voice deserves to be heard. But here's the challenge. Fear can be blinding. Panic can turn a hunch into chaos. So what do you do when that creeping suspicion refuses to go away? You don't react with fear. You respond with strategy. Start by documenting, not emotionally but methodically. Keep a private log. Write down what you see, when you see it, and how often it happens. Dates, times, details. What felt unusual? What changed? Patterns only reveal themselves when tracked with clarity. And don't underestimate the power of technology. A few well-placed security cameras can become your most objective witnesses. You might notice small behaviors you once dismissed, like someone showing up near your property just minutes after you leave. These digital records aren't just for your reassurance. They become evidence, especially if this ever crosses the line legally. But you don't stop there. Break the pattern. Change up your routine. Leave the house at different times. Take alternate routes. Park your car in new spots. Disrupt what they expect. Watch closely. If they're watching you, they'll adjust far too quickly. And that tells you everything. This isn't about paranoia. It's about being alert, being aware. Because true safety doesn't just come from locking your doors. It comes from understanding your environment, from sensing the invisible lines people are trying to cross, from knowing when someone isn't just part of the background, but actively trying to redraw the boundaries of your life. David, our retired firefighter, eventually saw the full picture. And he didn't lash out. He didn't make reckless accusations. He moved like a Stoic, calmly, deliberately, and with clarity. He shifted his schedule without warning, logged every interaction, collected video evidence, and when things escalated, when the neighbor crossed the line and began trespassing onto David's property late at night, he didn't argue. He acted quietly, professionally, legally. He contacted local authorities and handed them not fear, but facts. And because he trusted his instincts and stayed composed, he didn't just protect his home, he reclaimed his peace of mind. Here's the truth, whether we like it or not. If you feel watched, there's a good chance you are. The human mind has ancient instincts. It notices patterns long before we consciously register them. Ignoring those feelings isn't strength, it's denial, and denial can be dangerous. Real strength? It's hearing that internal warning, standing in it, and making moves that are quiet, powerful, and full of purpose. Because your home, your sanctuary, your peace deserves nothing less. But while strange behaviors can be spotted with your eyes, the next sign hides in plain sight, right behind the screens and devices we trust every day. Sign 2, their technology is focused on you. When your routine is under watch and the shadows outside your window start moving in rhythm with your day, the threat doesn't always come in person. Sometimes it comes through the devices we trust most. This kind of intrusion doesn't slam through your front door. It seeps in, quietly, through the very air around you. In today's hyper-connected world, Surveillance no longer looks like someone peeking over the fence or hiding behind a curtain. Number, it's smarter, smaller, more silent. A lens no bigger than a dime. A microphone tucked discreetly into a potted plant. A Wi-Fi router that's not just broadcasting, but listening. That's all it takes. One quiet decision by the wrong person, pointing a camera just a few degrees in the wrong direction, and suddenly, your front yard, your windows, maybe even the place where your children play, becomes part of someone else's private show. And here's the truth. This isn't bad installation. It's not an accident. It's intentional. At first, you might not even realize what's happening. You'll just feel off. A restless night of sleep here. A flash of irritation you can't place. A strange discomfort whenever you walk past the window. Soon you're avoiding sunlight altogether. You keep the blinds shut. You hesitate to laugh out loud. You find yourself whispering in your own living room. And all the while, anxiety quietly takes root, slowly transforming your sanctuary into something colder. Not a home, but a stage. You may even question yourself, am I overreacting? Maybe I'm just being dramatic. But deep down, your instincts are sounding the alarm that logic refuses to hear, because logic wants to be polite. Instinct, on the other hand, wants you safe. And here's where it gets darker. It doesn't take a tech genius to violate your peace. A smartphone left accidentally recording in a window. A strange Wi-Fi signal that only appears when you're home. A smart speaker glitching at 2 a.m., playing static or activating without a word. These aren't bugs, they're not coincidences. They are cracks, forming in the very walls that once held your peace. And every time you ignore them, those cracks spread further. The emotional toll, it's real. Living under quiet observation corrodes the soul. You stop being you. You stop dancing in the kitchen. You hesitate before telling a joke, before crying, before living out loud. Instead, you begin performing, censoring yourself, always aware that someone, somewhere, might be watching, listening, judging. You become an actor in your own home, performing for an audience you never invited. But the Stoics, even without smart homes or streaming devices, understood this invasion on a deep level. They knew that while the world could trespass against you, the one place it could never touch, unless you allowed it, was your mind. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." And that's your shield. You may not control what device your neighbor installs, but you can control your awareness, your preparedness, and your response. So start with this. Walk your property. Walk it like it's not yours yet, like you're seeing it for the first time. Look up, look closely. A hidden camera can sit inside a fake birdhouse, a porch light, even tree branches you thought were decorative. If strange Wi-Fi networks keep appearing only when you're home, don't brush them off. If your smart speaker lights up at odd hours, or your phone's battery suddenly drains without reason, don't assume it's just a glitch. These are not random tech quirks. They're digital warning flares. And it's time you listen. Protect yourself with the same tools being used against you. Encrypted connections, firewalled systems, security cameras, pointed not inward to watch yourself but outward, where they belong. Guarding, not spying, because once you reclaim the digital space around you, the next battle begins at a more personal level, through the unexpected shifts in your neighbor's behavior. Once you've secured your digital space, you begin to realize something deeper. Surveillance isn't just about devices. It's about access. And sometimes that access shows up disguised as friendliness. Think of it this way. You've built the walls, secured the cameras, strengthened your Wi-Fi, but the most critical battleground, it's not outside your home, it's inside your mind. And this is where your true strength must rise. Take control of your digital gates like a seasoned commander preparing for siege. Not with panic, but with precision. Not with fear, but with quiet determination. Because the ultimate goal is not just to survive while being watched, it's to refuse to let that fear dictate how you live. Set clear, firm boundaries, physical, digital, mental. And then within those walls, live fully. Laugh without flinching. Speak without shrinking. Be untouched in spirit no matter who watches from behind the blinds. Because true freedom isn't the absence of eyes on you. It's the refusal to let those eyes change who you are. Sign 3, they know private details they shouldn't. Let's ask a simple question. How much of your life could someone piece together just by listening? The truth? Less than 5 casual conversations. That's all it takes. 5 moments of carelessly overheard words, and suddenly your entire private world becomes someone else's mental blueprint. In this modern age, information is currency, and a neighbor who listens too closely isn't just being friendly, they're investing, gathering data, building a map of your life without your knowledge and certainly without your permission. You may not notice it at first. It starts small. A passing comment like, "Hope your sister's settling in well over in Phoenix." Only, you never told anyone about your sister's new job, except in a quiet phone call from your kitchen. Or maybe they say, "Those sneakers look nice, by the way. Heard they're expensive." Funny because the box just arrived yesterday, you haven't even opened it yet, and you definitely didn't mention it. These aren't lucky guesses. They're calculated. It's surveillance disguised as casual interaction. And once you notice it, once you recognize that creeping familiarity, it's impossible to unsee. It's not just, "They noticed my haircut." It's, "They know I got it last Tuesday at 3 p.m. and that I paid with my Visa card." That's not observant. That's disturbing. You're not dealing with friendly neighbors. You're dealing with someone who believes that proximity equals permission. Someone who thinks that living near you gives them the right to track you like a storyline. Psychologically, it goes even deeper. These individuals often convince themselves that their behavior is harmless, or worse, helpful. That keeping tabs on you is some form of neighborly duty. But don't be fooled. The slow, methodical collection of these seemingly innocent facts is not concern. It's control. It's how manipulators operate, gathering silent ammunition they can use without ever raising a red flag. And the damage? It's not just that you feel uncomfortable. It's that you stop feeling safe in your own home. You begin censoring yourself, replaying your words, wondering, "What did I say aloud yesterday? Was the window open? What else did they hear?" You begin second-guessing every conversation, every decision, until one day, you're no longer living freely. You're just editing yourself constantly for an audience that was never invited. But from a Stoic perspective, the path forward is clear, simple even. You can't control the choices of others. You can't force someone to be respectful or ethical or honorable. But you can absolutely control your boundaries. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, external events have power only if we grant them access to our minds. Let that sink in. So the real question becomes, how do you draw those boundaries, not just in space, but in behavior, when the intrusion becomes more subtle and more strategic? When someone begins collecting details from your life like puzzle pieces, They're not just watching anymore. They're trying to build something. And what they build could soon cross into your physical space. If your privacy feels like it's slipping away, you can't afford to ignore it. But that doesn't mean lashing out. It means reclaiming control, starting with what you allow to leave the protected space of your home. One simple, clever tactic: test the waters. Mention something false, a fictional trip you're not taking, a made-up appointment. Say it casually within earshot of an open window or shared wall, just once. Then wait. If your neighbor mentions it days later, smiling like it's an innocent coincidence, there's your answer. It's crude, but brutally effective. While you're testing, start tightening the perimeter. Avoid personal conversations near open windows. Soundproof thin walls if you can, or use white noise machines to mask what shouldn't be overheard. Be mindful of even the smallest details you post online. That Instagram story showing your location, or the casual status update revealing your routine. In the wrong hands, they're not harmless. They're ammunition. This isn't paranoia, it's precaution, it's wisdom. It's the same principle the Stoics lived by for centuries. Guard what is sacred: your peace, your mind, your private life. Some people don't understand boundaries unless they're forced to. So build yours, clearly, deliberately, unapologetically. Because a neighbor who feels entitled to the unseen corners of your life isn't just being curious. They're actively crossing a line. And once that invisible boundary is violated, it doesn't get rebuilt with emotion. It takes strategy, a calm, firm defense of your sovereignty, your right to exist in peace, unobserved, unprovoked, undisturbed. So if you've found value in recognizing these warning signs, consider subscribing now. Preparation always beats regret, and your future self will thank you for having the foresight to pay attention. Sign 4. There's physical evidence around your property. The fourth sign? This one's not a hunch. It's not a feeling. It's not something you imagine at 2 a.m. when the house creaks. This is evidence, something real, something you can see, something you can touch. When surveillance crosses from the digital realm into the physical world, it's no longer speculation, it's intrusion. And the signs, they're often subtle, easy to dismiss if you're looking for reasons to feel safe, but unmistakable if you're truly watching. Take Richard, for example, a quiet man living in a quiet suburban street. Nothing seemed out of place until it did. You see, Richard had a quirky habit. He always left his welcome mat slightly tilted, off-center, just enough to feel familiar when he came home. A small touch, barely noticeable to anyone else, but it was his. One weekend, Richard took a short trip. Nothing major, gone just 2 days. But when he returned, the welcome mat was perfectly straight, aligned like it had been measured with a ruler. He told himself it was the wind. Maybe a delivery guy moved it. Anything to avoid overthinking, until the next morning. That's when he noticed something else. The potted plant by his front door, one he always turned toward the sun, had been rotated, not randomly, but facing the street, as if someone had adjusted it to see from a different angle. Still, he tried to dismiss it, but then his mailbox, normally shut tight, no new mail that day. Yet there it was, slightly ajar, tiny things barely worth noticing, unless you know your space, unless something inside you tells you, this isn't right, because these weren't natural shifts. They were deliberate touches, signs that someone had stepped too close, crossed a line, touched things that weren't theirs to touch. And Richard knew. Someone wasn't just passing by. Someone had been there, observing, possibly even testing the boundaries of his reaction. And when physical evidence starts to appear, what happens next can be even more unsettling, because the watcher may not stay hidden much longer. When physical signs begin showing up, moved objects, disturbed spaces, you're no longer dealing with suspicion, you're dealing with confirmation. And what happens next can rattle you to your core. Someone hasn't just been watching. They've started interacting, testing the boundary between what's theirs to see and what should be off limits. And that's what makes this sign so deeply unsettling. When things inside your private world are touched, adjusted, shifted, it doesn't just feel like a breach of space. It feels like a psychological break-in. Because your home, your only true refuge, should feel like the one place on earth where you are completely untouchable, impenetrable, safe. But now, that safety has a crack in it, a fault line opened not by force but by someone's obsession, disguised as harmless presence. This is how it begins. A package left slightly out of place, mail that looks like it was opened, then clumsily resealed, blinds tilted differently than how you left them, a door left not quite shut. To someone else, these might seem like accidents. But you know your space. You know when something has been altered. And if you choose to ignore it, that silence becomes permission. These subtle signs often speak louder than words, if you're willing to listen. Security professionals have a term for this: telltales. Simple, subtle traps that alert you to unauthorized movement. A sliver of clear tape across the inside edge of your doorframe. A small note or piece of paper delicately placed between the door and its frame. If it's disturbed when you return, you'll know, because in a world where the lines between public and private are constantly being tested, awareness is your first defense. And if you do find something, don't panic. Document. Take time-stamped photos. Keep a private journal where you note dates, times, and emotional impressions. Was the box shifted? Was the lock slightly turned? Was that shadow by the fence truly coincidence? This isn't paranoia, it's preparation. It's building a body of evidence, not just for peace of mind, but in case legal action ever becomes necessary. The emotional toll of discovering that someone has trespassed, physically or mentally, into your space can be heavy. Trust starts to erode. Your connection to the neighborhood, to your sense of place, begins to shift. And every creak in the hallway, every misplaced item, becomes a whisper. You are not alone. But here's what the Stoics knew, what Epictetus taught. You may not control the world outside your door, but you do control how you interpret it. It's not the event that breaks us, it's the way we frame it. So recognize the violation, acknowledge it, but respond with strength, not fear. Secure your space. Record what needs to be recorded. Take back the authority over your home, and more importantly, your mind. Because once you spot physical evidence of surveillance, it's no longer about what might be happening. It's a clear warning that something already has. The line from curiosity to obsession, it's thin. And when it's crossed, it rarely walks back. So how do you know when your neighbor has truly crossed that line? When their interest stops being passive and becomes a full-blown obsession? Sign 5. Their behavior escalates, and so does the danger. When the signs move from subtle disturbances to undeniable evidence, the real danger begins, not just in what they do, but in how they slowly reshape your sense of normal. Obsession doesn't kick the door in, it slips through the cracks. 1 inch at a time, until what once felt like mild discomfort suddenly becomes dangerously familiar. These situations don't explode overnight. They creep. They normalize themselves interaction by interaction until you find yourself questioning everything, including your own instincts. So let's pause for a moment. Think back. Have there been moments when a neighbor lingered a little too long during what should have been a brief hello? Did their compliments ever feel slightly off, like they knew more than you ever told them? And how many times did you swallow that discomfort just to avoid sounding paranoid? How often did you force a smile, rationalize their behavior, and tell yourself, I'm just overthinking it? We all do it. We ignore the whispers of instinct in the name of politeness, forgetting that instinct doesn't exist to keep us liked. It exists to keep us alive. Let me share a story with you. Karen, suburban, quiet street, nice house on a cul-de-sac. She never thought much about the neighbor who always waved with a little too much energy every morning. At first it felt friendly, innocent, but gradually that wave turned into questions. He began asking about her job, making specific comments she didn't recall ever sharing. Then one evening, after a private phone call behind closed doors where she casually mentioned a weekend trip, she found a note under her doormat. It read, "Have a great trip." No one else knew, just her, in her own home. And the neighbor, he wasn't supposed to. It hit her hard, but still she brushed it off, told herself it was just a weird coincidence. Until a few weeks later, when she found out he had been entering her backyard while she was away, claiming to be checking on the property. That's not concern. That's escalation. Karen's story isn't rare. It's common, textbook, because that's how these invasions work. They start as gestures that seem kind until they become coordinated tactics meant to destabilize your sense of control. Psychologically, when a neighbor shifts from interest to fixation, they no longer see you as a person. You become a project, an object, something to monitor and manipulate. It becomes even more sinister when they begin positioning themselves as your protector, your confidant, while gradually isolating you from the community. That's not kindness, that's control. It's a calculated move, a strategy to make you dependent, confused, and less likely to push back. And once you're isolated, you're easier to influence, easier to silence, easier to watch. But from a Stoic perspective, the path forward is crystal clear. You don't respond with fear, you respond with logic, with action. Marcus Aurelius taught that we are not defined by what happens to us, but by how we respond to it. So respond. Document everything, every incident, every shift, every comment. Keep a written timeline, not to vent, but to defend, to prepare. And if escalation continues, don't wait. You have legal tools, restraining orders, cease and desist letters, anti-stalking laws. They exist for a reason, to protect people before it's too late. Involve law enforcement, not when it's unbearable, when it's unacceptable, and reach out to people you trust, friends, family, neighbors who respect your space. Because isolation is what predators aim for, and connection is your strongest weapon. This isn't about confrontation. It's about preservation of your life, your mental clarity, and your right to exist in peace. Obsession rarely knocks on your door with flashing lights. It enters softly, disguised as politeness, as concern, as coincidence. But here's the good news. Recognizing the signs means you're no longer in the dark. In our final section, we'll recap the key takeaways and share how to move forward with confidence, clarity, and control. When obsession tiptoes into your life disguised as politeness or concern, Recognizing the truth early isn't just helpful, it's vital, because what you do next could make all the difference. That's why recognizing these shifts as they happen and taking action isn't just wise, it's necessary. Courage doesn't mean you're without fear. It means you act in spite of it. It means you step forward clear-headed and prepared to protect what's yours. Your instincts? They're ancient, hardwired into your DNA. They've evolved over thousands of years not to make you paranoid, but to keep you alive. So when that inner voice whispers that something's wrong, listen. Because once someone crosses the line into obsession, your silence won't keep you safe. Only your action will. And if you've made it this far in the video, let me say this clearly. You're not like most people. You're part of the small percentage, the 1%, who not only sensed something wasn't right, but took the time to understand what it really meant. You now know the 5 signs. You've seen how casual friendliness can mask deeper intentions. You've heard the stories, recognized the patterns, and most importantly, learned how to spot the danger before it crosses your doorstep. This isn't about fear, it's about awareness. It's about locking your doors before the wolf even thinks about knocking. It's about living with your curtains open and your mind at peace, not flinching every time the mailbox creaks or a shadow passes your window. So here's your final reminder. Trust your gut, protect your peace, and most importantly, never apologize for drawing boundaries that keep you safe. And if this video opened your eyes even a little, don't stop here. Hit that subscribe button and become part of a community that values clarity, calm, and self-respect over chaos. We don't sleep with one eye open. We sleep in peace because we prepared for the storm before the clouds even formed. And hey, the next video the algorithm picked for you? That wasn't random. That's your next shield. Click it now. Your future self and your future peace of mind will thank you.